We're just talking about Admiral Akbar there. We've got a new Star Wars movie that came out. The People versus George Lucas. Everyone know about this? Hear about it's getting a lot of attention. Now, my feeling is that, yeah, I have some problems with the prequels. And I also take issue with parts of Return of the Jedi. And I think that most of the changes made to the original trilogy don't improve things. And in fact, some of those changes make things worse. You know, Greedo shooting first, sure, you can applaud that. The Wampa in the background, don't like it. Now I realize that my opinions on these specific aspects of these films is subjective. But I am entitled to these opinions, as we all are. Criticism of art, especially very popular art, is crucial to society. But let's face it, George Lucas bashing has gotten completely out of control. And what I mean by that isn't how negative the criticism is of George Lucas and the prequels and these movies, but rather how disproportionate the amount of the overall criticism is to the criticism of any other artist ever in the history of art. It is not the job of geeks to pick something and then hate it. It's our job to hate everything. And we are dropping the ball. There is no statute of limitations on suckiness. But just because it remains okay to slam Return of the Jedi doesn't mean that it's okay to let bygones be bygones with Superman 3. How the hell did that happen? Casting Richard Pryor in a Superman movie is such an obviously stupid idea that the only possible scenario that I can concoct in my head for how it came about was that it was planted in the minds of Warner Brothers executives through a 5-level inception plot by a rival studio. The executive woke up one day and said, "Hey, wait a minute, I've got a great idea. Let's take two things that are awesome and ruin them both." Superman and Richard Pryor are each other's kryptonite. And let's talk for 1 second about the drop in quality between Star Trek IV and Star Trek V. It doesn't take a William Shatner scholar to know that you should never let this guy anywhere near the other side of the camera. Star Trek V was a warp factor 10 shark jump. And yet no one is mentioning this today, and this is wrong. Geeks, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of Shatner's ego. And let's talk for 1 second about the colossal disappointment that was RoboCop 2. Directed by the guy who brought you The Empire Strikes Back, folks. And with the script by Frank Miller, and not the modern-day current lost his marbles Frank Miller either. This was the 80s Daredevil, Dark Knight Frank Miller. And when we're talking about Frank Miller, what the hell happened with The Dark Knight Strikes Again? Why is no one talking about that? Did I imagine that in my own mind? Once I was reading that, all I could think is, gee, what Photoshop plugin is this page going to be an excuse for? Ladies and gentlemen, the Wachowski brothers raped your 1999. They did. They did it. They did it twice, and you liked it, or else you would call the crisis line called the internet. Where the hell is that documentary? And then the Wachowskis went and raped anime fans from the 60s. Casting Emile Hirsch as Speed Racer? Are you kidding me? I can't believe how hung up we are on Jake Lloyd's performance when Emile Hirsch's acting sucks up more life and energy than Galactus. Geeks, you cannot erase these travesties from the history books and then complain about midichlorians. The 70s was a magical time in filmmaking, arguably the best decade ever for film. If George Lucas has slipped a notch since then that must be in stark contrast to his contemporaries, who have given us nothing but solid gold since. That is hogwash. Michael Ritchie did go on to direct Cops and Robertsons. William Friedkin did go on to direct Jade and Rules of Engagement. Sidney Lumet did direct the train wreck known as A Stranger Among Us. Did anyone see this? With Melanie Griffiths playing a cop and she goes undercover as a Hasidic Jew? That really happened, geeks! And let's say, for the sake of argument, that George Lucas made some misguided decisions in the prequels. I still believe that he cared. I mean, was Francis Ford Coppola even trying when he made Godfather 3? And the answer to that question is, if you've seen his directorial work in Jack with Robin Williams and Bram Stoker's Dracula, then you know that the answer is yes. He was trying his ass off. He just sucks now. I will put Jar Jar Binks up against any scene with Keanu Reeves and Bram Stoker's Dracula. He's seen, in comparison, he's going to seem like the Laurence Olivier of the Gungans. Geeks, if I'm being honest, you've become a lazy bunch of fucking posers. You don't get to complain about Star Wars and then punch off the clock. Not when there's so much else to hate. Not when Diane Warren was allowed to write a theme for a Star Trek series. Not when the last Transformers movie introduced skids and mudflap. Not when the Seth Rogen Green Hornet movie is coming out. And not when we live in a universe that gave us Final Crisis Issue 7. The outrage that we should be expressing over these artistic crimes has apparently been frozen in carbonite. Why are none of these filmmakers or ruined franchises being tarred with the same blog as George Lucas? Come on, geeks. It's time to up your game and diversify your hate portfolio. Stop letting all of these other artists off the hook because, let's face it, their descent into the Sarlacc pit of quality is far greater.